Tonight we slip through time. No fanfare, no fuss, just you, your blanket, and a story older than sleep. You may not survive this world, but don't worry, you're just visiting. Before we drift off, tap like and subscribe, only if this helps you rest. Drop your location and the time down below. I always wonder who else is awake. Alright, lights low, fan humming. Let's start the journey. You dreamt of land, of freedom, of promise. Instead, you awaken to mud and buzzing, and something that smells like old meat and wet linen under a pale, humid sky. You've arrived. Jamestown, they'll call it, after your king, who has never once slept in a thatch roof hut or eaten corn with his fingers. You do not belong here. But here you are, as thick with insects, a mosquito hum layered over a deeper silence, the kind you feel more than hear. Behind you the ship still rocks in the tide, but ahead, trees, endless, dark, watching. They say 104 of you made it, some already coughing, some already stealing. Most of you are gentlemen, men whose calluses live only in theory, whose hands know the weight of forks, not axes. The moment you step off the ship, your boots sink into the marshy edge of Virginia's untouched throat. You expected open land, fields, gold maybe, or at least space to breathe. But the river chokes the land, and the trees crowd each other in. There's no room here for hope, or even air. You don't know it yet, but this land is cursed by your own arrival, and it already knows what to do with you. You build nothing the first day. You look around, you sweat, and then the bickering begins. Captain Newport insists on unloading cargo. Captain Smith argues about priorities. The gentlemen complain about manual labor. No one agrees on where to build the fort, or the well, or even who should fetch the water. So you fetch nothing. Somewhere in that indecision, the sun dips behind the tree line and the swamp begins to breathe. At night, the air fogs with rot. The mosquitoes come harder now. Thick, whiny clouds of hunger that can't be swatted away. You sleep in a canvas tent, half open, on earth that shifts with each breath. Something howls in the trees. You don't know what it is, you will never know what it is. You will simply stop hearing it, in time. Morning comes, damp, ugly. You cough into your sleeve and find it dark with blood. Someone jokes, it's the voyage catching up to you. Another says it's the Virginia air. You try to laugh. You mostly wheeze. Already you miss bread. Not just the taste, the idea of it. Warmth, salt, flour not powdered with worms or black with mold. You eat hardtack instead. It cracks your tooth and your soul at the same time. You still think this is temporary, that it will get better. And that is the last good joke you will ever tell. By the third day, someone goes missing. He went to fetch wood, they say, didn't come back. You wonder if he slipped into the river, if he ran, if he was taken. But no one investigates. Not really. Because the trees whisper and the water gurgles and everyone pretends not to notice the shapes that move just out of view. You're told to keep working, build a palisade, dig a trench, haul stones. No one says it, but everyone's thinking it. This is not England. This is something else. This place has teeth. Let's talk about the land briefly. The soil is sandy and sour. It doesn't want your crops. The water is brackish, salted with tide and filth. The game hides deep in the woods, the birds are quick and strange, and your every motion echoes. You feel like a trespasser. That's because you are. Your ship is supposed to leave soon. Newport wants to go back for supplies, for settlers, for word to His Majesty. And so a choice must be made. Who stays? You do. Why? Maybe duty, maybe debt, maybe because you were too sick to protest, or maybe because part of you wanted to prove you could survive it. But that's the thing about Jamestown. It doesn't want survivors. It wants stories and corpses. The forest is closing in. Your skin itches, your stomach knots, and the mosquitoes? They never stop. They get inside your ears, your eyes, your throat. You learn to sleep with your mouth shut. You learn to listen for the buzz before the bite. But you'll never be fast enough. No one is. Night again. The tents sag under the damp. A man in the next camp moans in his sleep. Fever. His cheeks flush red, but his lips are blue. You don't look, you just lie still, and wonder, what will the ground feel like when it swallows you? It will happen, you think. Not now, but soon. You just arrived, and you're already unraveling. Still here? Still listening? You made it through day one. They say the first week is the hardest. They say that about drowning too. We're only getting started. Still here? Still listening? You made it through day one. They say the first week is the hardest. They say that about drowning too. We're only getting started. Sleep tight. There's a cruel trick your body plays, a timeline drawn in gnawing increments. Day 1, you are merely inconvenienced. You miss the taste of salt, of sugar, of anything that doesn't crack, crunch, or reek. Day 3, the word craving loses meaning. You no longer long for a roast you'd kill for an onion. Not a cooked one, just raw sliced, maybe, but even that's a luxury. Day 5, your body begins to eat itself in whispers, not loudly, not yet, but you feel it. You rise from sleep, if that's what we're calling it, with a mouth that tastes like iron and ashes. A film has formed over your tongue, courtesy of the water you boiled too little and prayed too much over. Your rations today are a palm of worm-soft barley, half a slab of salt pork that smells like sweaty leather, and a mug of beer, now warm and sour. The beer is the best part, and it tastes like someone rinsed a mug with vinegar and then didn't bother pouring it out. You were told there would be provisions, barrels upon barrels, dried meat, dried peas, biscuits, butter, cheese. But no one warned you about the rot. The Atlantic has a way of turning food to mulch. The barrels are soggy and sour, and half of them weren't packed properly. The salted beef is alive. Maggots bloom like a second seasoning. The peas are weeviled. The butter, well, butter should not move. But you eat it because you must. Not eating means weakness. Weakness means sickness, and sickness is something that gets noticed. You want to stay unnoticed. There are rules about rationing. Captain John Smith tries to enforce them, but he's not always obeyed. You see it, the extra handfuls. The men who sneak into the storehouse late at night, shadows limping across firelight, they never take much, just enough. Just enough to be a little less empty. And still, men begin to die. You think maybe it's scurvy, or dysentery, or the marsh again. Maybe it's the salted pork, or the despair, or all of it. But the hunger? The hunger is constant. You hear it in the way men speak slower, see it in how they stare at each other's fingers just a beat too long. Food becomes currency, it becomes prayer, it becomes legend. Someone says they saw a squirrel. A squirrel. The camp stirs with hope, which is to say, desperation. By nightfall, no squirrel. But the hope stays, festering. And the rats? Ah yes, the rats are thriving. Bold, fat, clever. They scuttle beneath your bedroll, sometimes over it. A man tried to trap one yesterday. Tied a bootlace around a scrap of meat and lay in wait. Hours passed. He caught the rat. He ate it raw. No one stopped him. No one even looked away. You find yourself counting bites now. 1, 2, 3. Swallow. Chew longer, you think. Trick the belly. Fool the mind. Drag it out. You've started chewing bark. Not much. Just a sliver here and there. You heard the natives chew it for medicine. You assume it's the willow, but you wouldn't know a willow from a ghost right now. The bitterness coats your teeth, but it feels like something. It feels like doing something. And that's worth more than food. Let's talk about the storehouse. A noble word for a moldy shack filled with despair and barrels. It smells like wet hemp and meat-flavored mildew. It's guarded. Not always well, but guarded. You've considered breaking in, just once, just for a taste, just for a moment of fullness. But you haven't, yet, and you're beginning to hate those who have. Somewhere in the distance, a group returns from a foraging mission. They bring back a handful of acorns, 3 berries, dubiously edible, and a rabbit, half-rotten, strung limp from a stick. You watch them cook it. You wonder if they'll share. They don't. You understand. Night falls. Someone cries themselves to sleep. The sound is half-muffled. Shame has a way of dampening volume. A man vomits beside the fire. You all stare at it. Too long. No one says anything, because you all had the same thought. You look at your hands. You used to have rings. You sold them for food. The ring was gold. The food was not. You do it again. One of the younger boys, a page maybe 12 years old, is missing today. They say he wandered, looking for roots, mushrooms, nuts, something. You say nothing. You feel nothing. You just wait, because you know he'll either come back or feed something else. You sleep with a stone under your pillow now. Not for comfort, for protection. You don't trust the hunger anymore, especially not your own. Still listening, wanderer? The belly is only the beginning. The mind is next, and winter hasn't even spoken yet. You're early, and already late. Sleep now. Dream of butter. You won't taste it again. The ground drinks first, then it offers you back to the mosquitoes. You begin the day with blood in your mouth. Not dramatic. Just a copper whisper, a tang behind the teeth. You spit into the grass and watch the red curl away like it's embarrassed to be seen. Your joints ache, your temples throb, and your eyelids feel like they've been sewn half shut in the night. It's not from labor, not from poor sleep. You are being unmade, and the culprit is everywhere. Under your boots, in your lungs, inside your blood. It's the swamp. They don't call it that, not officially. No one says welcome to the putrid gut of Virginia. No, they say it's rich land, abundant, waiting for us. But the land is not waiting, it is watching, and it is sick. Let's take a stroll, shall we? You walk from the edge of your sagging tent toward the makeshift latrine. Your feet sink with every step, the marsh giving way like it's reluctant to hold you. The air hums, not with birdsong, but with the drill of insects, so persistent you stop hearing them until they stop, and then the silence feels wrong. The humidity is an animal, heavy, greedy, alive. Your shirt sticks to your ribs like old fruit skin, and everywhere? Still water, pools, puddles, boggy veins threading the land with stagnation. They reflect the sky in greasy smears. Sometimes when the sun hits them just right, they shimmer with oil, which would be beautiful, if not for the writhing larvae skating beneath the surface. The locals, the Powhatan, they do not live here. They pass through, they trade, they watch. But they do not settle in this muck-blessed clearing. You think about that, but only for a moment. You're too busy sweating. There's a new word on everyone's cracked lips, ague. A gentle name for a gentle death. You shake, you burn, you chill, you burn again. You hallucinate things in the trees. You speak names that don't exist. You wake in puddles of your own sweat, and worse. No one calls it malaria yet. That word won't arrive until the doctors do, centuries too late. But the swamp knows it, and it spreads it with a lover's care. Captain Smith orders more ditches dug. He says it will drain the water. It doesn't. It just opens more mouths in the earth for the mosquitoes to breed in. The ditches fill overnight. You step in one by accident and nearly lose your boot. The mud smells like old eggs and blood. You gag, you keep walking, you try to drink. The river is there, after all. The James, named after your king, who would not lower his lips to this brown soup even under torture. They tell you to boil it. You try, but your firewood is damp. Your hands are shaking. You cough once, twice. By the third, it feels like something inside you has come loose. You stop boiling it. You drink it anyway. And the sickness settles in, low and slow. The men begin to lose their teeth, not from trauma, just one by one, as if the swamp is unscrewing them gently. One man pulls out 3 in a day. He holds them like dice in his palm. He laughs. He does not laugh the next morning. Let's take inventory of your symptoms. Fever? Yes. Rash? Spreading. Joints? Stiff. Tongue? Swollen. Eyes? Red, sticky, sunken. Urine? What urine? Stools? Liquid. Frequent, humiliating. You are not dying all at once. You are dying by degrees. Each hour a little less alive. And still you work. You build walls. You dig pits. You pretend the camp isn't shrinking. Because to speak the truth of it, that the earth is killing you, would feel like blasphemy, or worse. Acceptance. The night brings more heat and more biting. You wake covered in welts. You count them. You stop at 57. A man beside you is scratching until his skin peels. You see bone. You say nothing. The bites swell. Some ooze. Some blacken. One man's leg rots from the shin down. He says nothing, just stares at the trees. You begin to understand him. You've heard talk of miasma, bad air, poisoned wind, a corruption of the breeze. They're not wrong, but it's not the air. It's everything. The damp, the heat, the mold, the filth. It's inside your lungs, your sweat, your marrow. The swamp is not just around you, it's in you now. Still here? Good, because there's something you need to hear. You don't survive Jamestown by fighting the swamp. You survive by becoming it. Silent, sick, and swallowing whatever stumbles too close. You call it shelter. The wind calls it a joke. Your house, if you're generous enough to call it that, leans when you breathe too hard. It is made of twigs, mud, hope, and a remarkable amount of wishing it won't collapse. You built it, kind of. You helped lift the logs, if not correctly. You helped pat the clay, though most of it stuck to your hands. You helped nail the thatch, but not well. The roof sighs in the night like it knows what's coming. But it stands, mostly, for now. The idea was a fort. That was the plan. Jamestown, a bastion, a square of safety carved into the wilderness. An English toehold in a continent that wants nothing to do with you. What you got instead was a wet puzzle of rotting wood, slanted posts, and slumped, half-built shelters that tilt like they're trying to crawl away from you. The palisade is only 3 logs high in most places, gaps wide enough to crawl through. Which is lucky, because the door doesn't latch and the wall is more suggestion than security. Your roof? A thick mat of reeds and thatch. You thought that sounded quaint, even charming, until the first real rain. The rain does not fall here, it arrives. It begins as a whisper, a sigh in the leaves, and then suddenly the sky weeps sideways. The water doesn't stream down, it forces its way in, through cracks, through seams, through the very idea of dryness. You huddle beneath a threadbare blanket, in your home, and feel the cold fingers of rain trace your spine, looking for a place to settle. They find it. You sleep in a puddle that night, and the next, and the next. Mold grows on everything, the walls, your boots, the inside of your nose if you stay still too long. You no longer smell it, but others do. You all do. It's the smell of damp rot and mildewed failure, of wet dogs and old teeth, of something too long in the ground and not buried deep enough. Firewood? Ha! There is none. Not dry, at least. You burn green wood and the smoke claws at your lungs. You've taken to fanning the flames with your hands, your sleeves, your breath, anything. Sometimes you choke on the smoke and cough until you black out. This is preferable to the cold. Let's talk about the floor. It's dirt, soft when wet, hard when cold, alive with movement either way. You tried laying down straw, it rotted. You tried a cloth, it molded. You sleep on the dirt now. Not because you want to, but because fighting it is just one more battle you'll lose. There are rats in the walls. You don't chase them anymore. Sometimes they curl up near your warmth. You let them. Sometimes they die there. You let them. One night, you feel a rat give birth beside your ear. You roll over, whisper an apology, and drift back into a fever dream that smells like wet fur and sour milk. Wind howls through the camp like a drunk prophet. Your roof flaps. Your walls tremble. You patch them with shirts you no longer wear, bark you can peel from the trees. Pages from a ruined Bible. The irony is not lost on you. You've used scripture to stop the rain. Spoiler, it doesn't. The men are getting quieter. No more hammering, no more shouting, just soft mutters and the occasional thud of something heavy falling. Wood, maybe, or someone. You startle at both. You try to keep your hands busy. It helps. You repair things. You lash corners. You chew through twine with your teeth because no one remembers where the knife went. You rebuild your corner when it caves. You sweep the dirt when it stinks. You stack stones against the wind like that might fool it. It doesn't. But here's the worst part. You begin to call it home. Not aloud, not yet. But inside you, deep down, past the rotten ruin, some desperate animal part of your mind whispers, at least it's yours. So you keep sleeping, keep fixing, keep muttering prayers between coughs, and when the wind howls again, rattling your shelter like death's teeth, you press your palm to the damp wall and whisper, not tonight. It listens, or it doesn't. But either way, you're still here. Still breathing? Still dry? Good. That makes you one of the lucky ones. For now, sleep in your swamp-slick lean-to. Try not to drown in it. It's clear. It's cool. It's gently salted with rot. You don't remember the last time you drank without thinking about it. Now every sip feels like a risk, a negotiation, a dare. The river runs wide and beautiful. The James. They named it that so you'd trust it. So you'd kneel at its edge, cupping the water like a child, thirsty, foolish, full of hope. And so you do. You drink, and your body begins to undo itself. Let's start with what you don't know. You've landed in the worst place possible. The river is brackish, a cruel word that means too salty to drink, too fresh to float away your filth. It curls around Jamestown like a serpent playing nursemaid. Tides push seawater upstream twice a day. In between, the filth flows out, yours. Your chamber pots, your waste pits, your corpses. All of it finds its way back to the same water. And then you drink it. Again. The taste lies to you. It's not bad at first. Cool, faintly earthy, a little sweet. Some even say mineral rich. A gentleman poet wrote that it tasted like the roots of a kind garden. He died 3 days later, blood foaming from his mouth. You were told to boil it. Sometimes you do. But firewood is rare, and boiling takes time, and thirst is loud. And so, you risk it, because the alternative is no better. Let's walk through your symptoms. They arrive slow. First, your stomach churns. Not the hunger churn, something deeper, looser, wetter, a bubbling that does not stop. Then the vomiting, then the fever, then the other end. You stop counting trips to the latrine after 12, and eventually you just stop going altogether. You use a corner. You apologize to no one. No one blames you, because they're doing the same thing. Diarrhea is the polite word. In Jamestown, we call it the river's revenge. You lie on your mat of old rags, lips dry, belly cramping in violent waves. You sip the same river water that cursed you, hoping this time it will bless you instead. It doesn't. Your mouth is cracked. Your tongue swells until words feel like a second language. You try to pray. You wheeze instead. Someone offers you a cup of cleaner water. It's been strained through cloth. The cloth was once white. Now it is mottled gray, streaked with something that looks like ash and smells like shoes. You drink it anyway. One man, desperate, started digging. He said he could smell clean water underground. He dug until his hands bled. He struck water. He drank it. It tasted like copper and soil. He smiled. Then he vomited blood. Then he went still. The storehouse has barrels of water, sealed and untouched, reserved for the officers, the elite, the lucky. You stare at those barrels sometimes. You imagine them filled with cold, clear mercy. You imagine them empty. You imagine smashing one open, letting the water baptize you, drown you, save you. You do not move, because if you do, they will call it theft. And the only thing punished faster than stealing food in Jamestown is stealing hope. You begin to hallucinate rain. You dream of waterfalls in places that don't have names. Your fingers twitch like they're catching drops. You bite your lip in your sleep, hoping your own blood might be wet enough. You watch the sky with suspicion. The clouds never open when you need them to. But the moment you crawl out to catch a drop, they scatter. By now, you've learned 3 lies about water. Clear means safe, boiled means clean, need justifies anything. All 3 will kill you, just on different schedules. And here's the joke. You are surrounded by water. The camp sits like a blister at the bend of the James River. You can't bathe in it, you can't drink from it, you can't cross it without risking your life. But it watches you, every day. It laps at the banks like it's licking its lips. You smell yourself. You are sour, rank, damp with fever sweat. You haven't properly bathed in weeks. The idea of washing in the river feels like suicide by slow soaking. And yet one day you do it. You wade in, not deep, just enough to stop feeling like skin. The water is cold, alive. You close your eyes, let it wrap around your chest, and for one brief, strange moment, you feel cleansed. You return to the camp and begin coughing blood. Still thirsty? Good. That means you're still alive. Barely. Dream of rain if you can. The real kind, not the kind that tastes like every bad choice you've made. You mistook their silence for welcome. It was really a warning. They were watching you before you arrived. Before the sails cracked the horizon. Before the ship's hull kissed the riverbank. Before your boots squelched into Virginia's rotten edge. They were already watching. From the trees, from the shadows, from behind the green. You, with your iron, your pale faces, your prayers that smelled like war. The Powhatan Confederacy knew what you were. A storm in a tunic. A hungry mouth wrapped in flag and Bible. They didn't hate you. Not yet. They pitied you. That was worse. You call them savages. Because you must. Because your mind can't stretch around the idea that they already understand this land better than you ever will. They fish in silence. They grow corn in soil you called cursed. They move like the wind, here, then gone, and always watching. You call it cowardice. It's really just patience. Your leaders speak of civilizing the locals. You are, of course, too sick to laugh. You watch as Englishmen, noble, educated, dressed in rags and lice, try to trade glass beads for grain. Sometimes it works. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes the warriors leave without a word. Sometimes they leave behind something worse, a message carved in absence. A few of the men try to make friends. They smile too wide, bow too low, offer half-spoiled meat and sweaty palms. One man even tried to learn the language. He mispronounced a greeting and said something closer to "your sister is a pig with one ear." They laughed, and then they stopped laughing, and then they left. Here's what you don't understand. The Powhatan know exactly who you are, because they've seen your kind before. In rumor, in prophecy, in history, passed mouth to ear like medicine or poison. You think you're planting roots. They see a fire, a sickness, a blight that builds with hammers and dies with prayers. And they are not wrong. Occasionally they leave you gifts, a rabbit, a basket of maize, a cluster of dried berries so sweet you almost cry. You call it kindness. It is an experiment. They're testing to see if you understand reciprocity. You do not. You ask for more. You always ask for more. You raid their caches. You steal from their traps. You shoot at shadows. You build fences not to protect your people, but to separate yourself from theirs. You burn what you don't understand. And that's almost everything. Captain Smith is the only one they take seriously. He listens, he studies, he doesn't speak unless he must, which in Jamestown makes him a saint. The Powhatan let him live. For now. The others? Not so lucky. Let's revisit one night. You're asleep or pretending to be. You hear footsteps just outside the palisade. Not loud, not clumsy, just present. By the time you sit up, they're already gone. No damage, no theft, just a message. We can come and go as we please. You are not the predator here. You are the experiment. Eventually, one of yours is found with an arrow in his neck. He'd wandered too far, looking for bark, or maybe a woman. The body is left in a clearing, eyes open, mouth full of mud. The arrow is still lodged in his throat, sleek, black, and precise. It was not a warning shot, it was an exclamation point. And yet your leaders speak of diplomacy. They say you must maintain trade. They say you must not antagonize. They say all this while building more walls, while sharpening more stakes, while fantasizing about land that was never yours to begin with. Let's be honest. You didn't come to coexist. You came to claim, to tame, to shape the wild in your image. And the land is rejecting you. The people are watching you drown, and they are not throwing you a rope, because they know you brought the water. Still listening? Good. You've made it this far by ignoring every signal. Why stop now? Sleep carefully. Some eyes do not close, and some arrows don't miss twice. You brought weapons. The land brought laughter. Let's admire your arsenal for a moment. You've got cannons, big brassy things, sun-glinting and mood-ruining. You've got swords, sharp enough to impress and dull enough to panic. You've got armor, hot, heavy, shiny, stupid. And muskets that sometimes fire. Usually not. From the outside, you look prepared, militarized, intimidating. From the inside, you look like a group of sick, starving reenactors in a live-action tragedy. Because here's the truth. You brought the toys, not the instructions. No one really knows how to fire the cannon. Not properly. Not without risk of exploding half the fort or their own hands. You've got powder, yes, but it's damp. Always damp. Stored in barrels made of wishful thinking and mildew. And you've got balls, both literal and metaphorical, but neither hit the target. Last week, a man tried to demonstrate a warning shot. The cannon misfired, and the recoil knocked him into the ditch he had just dug. It was the most effective thing that cannon has ever done. Your muskets? Let's not. They take a full 2 minutes to load, and half the time the flint misfires. They're more effective as clubs, or paperweights, or conversation starters. What's that? My mistake. Ah. The armor was fashionable in 1580. Now it's just sweat prisons. Polished breastplates and creaking gorgets glint prettily in the sun, and make you shine like a target. The natives? They wear leather, or nothing. They move. You clank, you waddle. You sound like a sack of pans rolling downhill. And when you fall, and you will, the armor fills with water like a drowning bell. One man was found in the marsh, face down, sunk to the waist, armor bloated like a kettle. You had to cut him out with a saw. Let's talk discipline. There isn't any. You have ranks, sure, captains, lieutenants, masters-at-arms, but they argue like theater children, and most of the men ignore them. Because when you're hungry, sick, and cursed, the chain of command looks more like a noose than a ladder. And still, they drill, marching in lines across uneven ground, sweating through their collars, muskets slung at odd angles, ready to be dropped and never found again. It would be funny if it wasn't so loud. You fire the cannon sometimes, not at enemies, just because. To make noise. To remind the trees you're still here. To make the men feel like something is being done. Each blast costs precious powder. Each blast echoes into the forest and nothing responds, except the crows. They love it. You keep watch at night, 4-hour shifts. You stand on a rickety platform, musket in hand, eyes scanning nothing. The darkness is thick here. It hums, it moves, it waits. You see things sometimes, a flicker, a shape, a glint of eyes just beyond the reach of firelight. You raise your musket. You don't fire. Not because of discipline, because you know it won't work. and then you'd be out of powder, and then you'd be out of luck. One man sharpened a spoon into a weapon, another uses a shovel like a sword, another sleeps with a club made from an old leg bone, not his own. You are armed, technically, but not dangerous, not to anyone but yourselves. You think you're warriors. You're not. You're a slow-moving buffet wrapped in metal and disease. The natives know it. The forest knows it. Even the wind knows it. It laughs through the gaps in your palisade like a child mocking your fort of sticks. And yet, you train. You march. You polish your saber with a fevered hand and pretend it matters. It doesn't. So sleep with your sword beside you. If nothing else, it keeps the rats from chewing your fingers. And when you hear a rustle in the trees, don't bother loading the musket. Just whisper, "Not tonight, please." And hope someone's listening. The air forgets how to be kind, so do you. There's no warning, no blizzard, no cinematic storm, no howling wind to cue dramatic violins, just a change in the breath of things. You wake one morning and the world is stiff. The ground crackles, your fingertips ache, and when you exhale, your breath lingers like it's reconsidering its loyalty. The first frost has arrived, not with flair, but with finality. Your blanket is soaked with dew that turned to ice in the night. You pull it over your face and it crunches like a stale biscuit. Your nose is numb. Your toes are worse. You wiggle them just to be sure they still exist. They do. For now, you shiver, you curse, you cup your hands to your mouth and blow as if breath were a gift you could give yourself. It isn't. The warmth dies in midair, curling into the cold like a lost thought. Firewood, always firewood. Your days become a ritual of gather, burn, regret, repeat. You search for dry branches, but the forest is wet with autumn's ghost. The leaves are brittle, the trees are spiteful. You return to camp with an armful of disappointment and light it anyway. It smokes, it fizzles, it stinks, but you pretend it's enough. Pretending is what you're best at now. The frost is inside you too. You feel it in your jaw when you chew, in your spine when you bend, in the way your breath turns sharp behind your teeth. Even your shadow looks cold now, thin, pale, shivering at noon. Your shelter wasn't built for this. The wind seeps through the cracks like it's on a mission. You stuff the gaps with straw, rags, a sock you can't remember owning. It helps. A little. At night, you sleep with your knees pulled to your chest like a folded letter. You dream of fires. When you wake, your fingers are blue. Not figuratively, not poetically. Blue. You rub them until they sting. Then until they don't. Then until you can't tell if they're yours anymore. Someone collapses beside the fire. He's not dead. Not yet. But you can see his breath. And then you can't. You don't have the energy to check. Let's talk about clothing. You wore lace once, silk maybe, a fine tunic, a tailored coat. Now you wear everything at once. Layers over layers, wool, leather, whatever still holds heat and doesn't scream when you move. You wrap your hands in strips of sackcloth. You use animal fat as lotion. You stink like a butcher's floor. You're proud of it. It means the cold hasn't won yet. The cold doesn't just take warmth, it takes sound. The camp gets quieter. Voices shrink, laughter dies. Even moaning becomes muffled. No one wants to open their mouth, because open mouths lose heat. You begin to measure time by how long you can sit still without cracking. Then there's the water. It freezes, not completely, just enough to mock you. You have to break the surface with a stick each morning. You do it with shaking hands. You drink fast before it crusts over again. It tastes like regret. Frostbite, another word you've come to know too well. It starts with tingling, then numbness, then pain. Sharp, mean, screaming pain that makes you bite the inside of your cheek until you taste pennies. A toe turns black, a finger stiffens, a nose bleeds for no reason. You bury the symptoms under silence and sleeve cuffs. You don't want to lose anything, not even the parts that hurt. Let's count the dead, not officially. No one does that anymore, just casually. 3 didn't rise this morning. 1 died curled near the fire. 2 froze outside the walls, too weak to knock. You pretend not to see the shape in the snow. You tell yourself it was a log. It wasn't. Still listening? Still warm? Then you're lucky, or not. Because the cold isn't done. It's just getting comfortable. It doesn't knock. It walks straight in. It sits beside you. It makes itself at home. Sleep tight, face the fire, and whatever you do, don't stop moving. You eat to live. Then you eat to not die. Then you eat to remember the idea of food. Let us begin with a question. What does despair taste like? Is it bitter, sour, the sharp metallic sting of spoiled brine? No, it's dry, it's tough, grainy, laced with rot and remorse. Despair tastes like salt meat and sawdust bread. The salt meat arrives in barrels, bloated and slick. You open one and the smell punches the room. Hot fat, dead fish, wet coins. The liquid inside is not brine anymore. It's something else, something that watches you. A man pulls a slab from the barrel. It wobbles like regret. He slices it thin, chews, keeps chewing. After 3 minutes he swallows and immediately vomits against the wall. He apologizes to no one. You eat it anyway, because hunger is louder than dignity. And salt meat? Well, it's meat. Technically. You scrape the green parts off, you boil it, you dry it over smoke, you whisper to it. Still it resists you. It gnaws back. Bread is simpler to hate. It started as flour, probably. Once, then it became a compromise. You stretch what little you have with powdered bark, ground peas, bits of paper ash, and yes, actual sawdust. Someone jokes that it keeps your bowels regular. Someone else hasn't passed a movement in 5 days. You eat the bread. It crumbles like chalk. Tastes like the corner of a box. You chew until your teeth ache. You swallow dry. You cry dry. Let's talk portions. You get 1 biscuit, sometimes half, sometimes just the memory of one. You trade for it. A button, a prayer, your labor, your silence. One man sold his boots for an extra scrap. He got gangrene 2 days later. No one offered their biscuit back. Someone tried to make soup. They called it stew. It involved a bone, a boot heel, some greens, species unknown, and whatever floated by in the ditch that morning. They boiled it down until it became a gray whisper in a cracked pot. You drank it. It burned. It helped. It didn't help. Let us return to the barrels. They are your enemy and your salvation. When they are empty, they're useful. As stools, as tables, as burial markers. When they are full, they lie to you. The meat at the top looks edible. The middle is mush. The bottom is where hope goes to drown. You stir from the sides. You cry if your ladle goes too deep. You begin to fantasize about food. Not just real food, memory food. A peach, butter melting on fresh bread. An apple so crisp it snaps in your hand like a flame. You dream of texture, crunch, cream, crumble. You wake with your fingers in your mouth. You are not alone. A man ate his belt. Another chewed leather scraps until they dissolved like grief. Another licked a page from a prayer book. No one questioned him. You learn to eat slow, to stretch the moment, to chew with reverence, to sip broth like it's a sermon. Because when it's gone, there's nothing after. Just you and the cold, and the ache in your stomach that feels like teeth turning inward. One evening, a man refuses to eat. He says he's done. You watch him curl up in the corner, arms folded over his ribs like wings. By morning, he is still. No one touches him. No one says a word. His biscuit lies untouched. You do not take it. But you think about it. All day, food becomes language. A nod means I have some. A glance means I need some. Silence means I'm starving. You stop asking. You stop offering. You hoard crumbs like they're beads of gold. And you learn to hide the sound of chewing, because chewing too loud means you have something, and someone might want it. And then one day, joy. Someone shoots a bird, a real one. Small, scrawny, beautiful. Feathers flutter across the camp like ashes from a holy fire. They cook it over low flame, tear it apart, distribute the meat like communion. You get the wingtip, mostly bone. It is the best thing you've tasted in weeks. You suck it clean, you weep a little, then you chew the bone. The salt meat keeps coming, the bread keeps shrinking, your stomach shrinks with it. Eventually, you no longer feel hunger, just cold, just numb. Just the steady drumbeat of your heartbeat slowing in the distance. Still hungry? Of course you are. But soon, even that will leave you, and you'll forget what it was like to need anything but sleep. Good night, empty stomach. Sleep well. It begins with a cough. It ends with a silence no one dares interrupt. You wake to the sound of someone choking, violent, wet, rhythmic, like something trying to crawl out of his lungs. You do not get up. You do not offer help. You stare at the canvas above your head and count the seconds between gasps. 9, 7, 4, 0. Then silence. You listen harder. The silence stays. You're used to it now. Sickness, it isn't an event anymore. It's the atmosphere. It moves through the camp like fog. Thick, quiet, impersonal. It creeps into mouths, noses, wounds, prayers. And once it's in, it settles down. It makes itself at home. It unbuttons your shirt and waits. There are many kinds. You've cataloged them. Some begin with a cough, soft, almost polite, then it deepens, rattles, tears at the ribs like tiny claws. Then blood. Not always a lot, just enough to make you stop pretending it's anything else. Others start lower. The belly, a twisting, a bubbling, a sense that something unholy has taken root in your gut. The latrine becomes your cathedral. You visit it often. You pray to the god of diarrhea, of dehydration, of dignity lost one drop at a time. Then there's the fever, the strangest one. It doesn't scream, it whispers. You feel it in your teeth, your fingernails, the back of your eyes. You shiver under layers, then sweat through them. You forget your name. You call out to people who aren't there. You apologize to the shadows. Sometimes the fever lets go, sometimes it holds on, just long enough to get attached. There are no doctors. You have a surgeon, in title, but he's more butcher than healer. He believes in bloodletting. He's very enthusiastic about it. You've seen him open a man's arm to relieve the vapors. The man bled, coughed once, died. The surgeon shrugged and washed his hands in snow melt and bourbon. No one says contagion. No one says plague. Those words carry weight. They make it real. So instead you say, he's under the weather. She's resting. He's tired. Even when the person in question hasn't moved in 3 days. Even when their eyes are open, but unseeing. Denial is cheaper than a cure. You start sleeping apart. Not because it works, but because it feels like doing something. You drape your mouth at night. You chew bitter roots. You avoid eye contact. None of it helps. The sick are everywhere. And they look just like you. One man you were sure was recovering. He smiled yesterday, told a joke, something about rats and rations. Today he's pale, still, quiet. He's not dead, but he will be. You know that now. You can smell it. The scent of sickness is hard to describe. It's not rot, not exactly. It's wet wool and hot meat and old milk. It clings to sheets, to breath, to memories. You carry it with you, even when you leave the sick room, even when you walk through the snow, even when you breathe open air. It's inside you now, like everything else. There's an unspoken rule: don't touch the bodies. But someone has to. So you draw straws. You lie about who's strongest. You pretend to volunteer. The corpses are light now, shockingly light, like puppets with the stuffing drained out. You try not to look at the eyes. You fail. You see yourself there. Burials have become abbreviated. No one builds coffins. Wood is for fires. Sometimes you don't even bury them. Just cover them. A blanket, a tarp, a prayer. More often, less. Sometimes they stay in place until the cold takes them fully. And even then, the rats show no respect. Names are forgotten. No one writes them down anymore. No one keeps count. You start using nicknames for the dead. Wheezy, Redcap, Old Soupfinger, the one who sang. It makes it easier to forget. To smile. To pretend you're not next. You've stopped asking how people are. You just glance. If they're moving, breathing, not curled in a corner, that's enough. If they look at you with recognition, that's a bonus. If they speak your name, that's a miracle. And then, of course, there's the delirium, the last stage. You've seen it enough to know the pattern. The person goes quiet, then too quiet. Then they start to talk. Not to you, not to anyone in the room, to people they've buried, to gods they never believed in. One man recited Latin verses from memory. He was a fisherman, couldn't write his name, didn't even know what Latin was. But the words came anyway, and when they stopped, so did his breathing. It's contagious, all of it. Not just the illnesses, the silence, the fear, the resignation. You catch that too, eventually. You try to fight it. You boil herbs, you wash your hands in snow, you tie charms around your wrist, you press cold cloth to hot foreheads, you whisper comfort, you pour broth, you stay awake all night, listening for the change in someone's breathing. But nothing you do matters. You might as well try to hold back the river with a cup. And yet you try. Because not trying feels worse. Because you remember how it felt. The first time you coughed and someone looked away. You swore you wouldn't do the same. But now your own throat scratches. Now you feel the heat behind your eyes. Now you understand. And you avoid your own reflection. You hear someone laugh. Real laughter. It echoes like a gunshot. Someone found a moldy apple and joked it looked better than they do. You laugh too. It hurts. But you laugh. Because laughter is a language disease hasn't stolen yet. Still listening? Still breathing? Then check your pulse. Feel your ribs. Swallow. Slowly. Because disease wears your face now. It walks in your body, sleeps in your bed, answers when someone calls your name. And when it smiles, it looks just like you. Sleep if you dare. The fever dreams are warm at least, and in them you're never alone. Not anymore. You won't scream, you won't beg, you'll just stop. There is no funeral, no weeping crowd, no black veils, no somber priest whispering through incense smoke. There's no bell to toll your passing, no procession, no final words. You will not be buried, you will be disposed of, efficiently, politely, like waste. You used to imagine your death with flair, a blaze, a charge, a final, noble act. Now, you imagine curling into your blanket, turning your face to the wall, and just not waking up. That would be kind. And kindness is in short supply here. No one dies dramatically anymore. There's no time, no energy. You can't afford to flail or plead or perform. Death is a slow fade, not a crash. Like a candle that forgot what it was burning for. You'll begin by sleeping more, just a little at first, an extra hour, then 2, then most of the day. You'll tell yourself you're conserving strength. You're not. You're slipping. Then the appetite will go. Even the bad food. The gray bread, the sour broth, the chewy lumps that once frightened you will seem unworthy of your effort. You'll pretend to eat, you'll pass your portions to others, you'll smile. This will make you seem noble. It's not. It's surrender with seasoning. Then your voice goes soft. Then your legs stop wanting to stand. Then your hands forget how to grip. And finally, the want leaves. The want to move. The want to stay. The want to be anything at all. And still, you won't say you're dying. You'll say you're tired, because that's the final grace death gives you. Denial. The others will notice. They always do. But no one says it. They'll offer you broth, cover you with their spare rags, pat your shoulder once gently with fingers that shake more than yours, and then they'll turn away. Not cruelly, carefully, because they know, once you're dying, you're no longer one of them. You're something else, a passenger, a shadow, a warning. You'll lie in the corner of the hut. Not a bed, no one has beds anymore. Just a patch of earth, softened by straw and resignation. You'll pull your blanket close, not because you're cold, but because it feels like something to hold on to. Even if it smells like mildew and rats, even if it's already wet with someone else's sweat. Your dreams will get louder, not brighter, just louder. Faces you forgot, hands you miss, voices that come from somewhere behind your ribs. You'll speak to them aloud sometimes. You'll think you're whispering. You're not. Eventually, your breathing will change, shallower, slower, like a tide pulling away from the shore. Someone will notice. They might sit beside you. They won't say your name, they won't cry, but they'll stay, just long enough to be sure. And then they'll leave. Not out of malice, just because it's your turn. You won't die at night, or at dawn, or in any moment that means something. You'll die between seconds, between sighs, between the sound of a log falling in the fire and the next breath someone forgets to take. And when they find you, they won't scream, they won't call for help, they'll check your eyes, they'll press your chest once, not to save you, just to confirm. And then they'll do what needs to be done. Your body will be wrapped, if there's cloth, dragged, if not. No one carries anymore. It's too much. They'll find a spot, soft earth, or snow, or mud. They'll leave you there, sometimes with a prayer, sometimes with nothing, sometimes with just a stone placed over your face. Not for tradition, to keep the animals from starting there. There will be no marker, no cross, no carving, no name. Your memory will last 3 days, then someone else will fall sick, and your space will be filled, and your name will fade from the mouths of the few who ever spoke it. And that is the gentle art of dying quietly, the secret to slipping from the world without a ripple, without ceremony, without even a goodbye, just absence, a new silence in the corner, a space where breath used to be. But here's the thing no one says. You're not alone. You're never the first. You won't be the last. The ground here is rich with the forgotten. It holds you, and all the others. The men who starved before the barrels opened, the women who bled without help, the children who cried for mothers already dead. You join them now, quietly, without fuss. Just another chapter in a story no one is writing down. Still here, still breathing, then you haven't yet mastered it. This dying gently, but you've watched enough to understand how it ends. And when it comes, you'll recognize it. You'll nod, and you won't even cry, because by then, you'll have forgotten why it mattered. Sleep then. Curl into yourself like a secret. Let the fever sing lullabies. Let your breath slow, let your name float away. It's okay. No one will need it soon. You built it to keep death out. Now it only keeps the smell in. You called it a fort once, Fort James. Strong, permanent, noble, built for God, king, and country. Now, you don't say its name anymore, because names are for the living, and the fort is not living. It's rotting, just like everything inside. At first it was meant to protect you, from arrows, from beasts, from unseen threats crouched in the green. You built the walls high, pointed logs, stacked close, a crude palisade that once made you feel secure. Now those walls feel closer, tighter, like ribs curling inward around a dying lung. The fort creaks when the wind blows, not like a structure, like a coffin. The gate barely shuts anymore. The hinges rusted weeks ago, and no one has the strength to fix them. A pile of rocks leans against the opening now, not to stop intruders, but to slow them down long enough to say goodbye. If anyone came for you now, you'd thank them. Even the wolves, even the Powhatan, even death. Inside the walls, space has changed. It used to feel like a settlement. Now it feels like a collection of excuses. Huts lean into one another like drunks at confession. Barrels lie empty or broken. Paths blur into the mud, trampled by the same tired feet. There are no gatherings, no meetings, no sermons. Only small silences, layered over one another like mold. You walk through the fort slowly now, not from reverence, from fear. Because every step is a chance to see another body, slumped in a corner, face down in the mud, half covered by a tattered blanket. You don't scream anymore. You just pause, listen, move on, move on. Sometimes someone else drags them away, sometimes not. Sometimes they stay. You step over them gently. That's the only form of respect that still exists. The smell is everywhere. You've grown used to it, but sometimes it shifts, becomes wet and sweet and sour all at once. A ripe, meaty perfume that clings to your skin and lingers in your teeth. It curls in your nostrils. It drips from the canvas roofs. It follows you into your sleep. You dream of feasts, then wake with bile in your throat. Let's talk about the fires. There are fewer now, not from lack of need, from lack of fuel, from lack of will. Cold drapes the camp like mourning cloth. No one gathers anymore. You burn what you can. A chair, a broken cart, a journal no one was reading anyway. You consider burning your own shelter, not to keep warm, just to see something bright before it's over. The walls that once stood proud now lean. They buckle under snow, under wind, under apathy. The logs warp and split. Some fall. No one picks them up. You begin to forget why they were there in the first place. And yet the fort still holds, like a memory refusing to fade. Like a body that won't die. It stands, not from strength, but from habit. And you live inside it. Not from choice, but from lack of other options. Someone tried to leave once, said he would rather freeze in the woods than rot in the fort. He walked to the gate, moved the stones, stepped outside. You watched him disappear into the trees. He returned 3 days later, frostbitten, wordless, alone. He wouldn't say what he saw. He just found a corner and stopped speaking. He's still there, might still be breathing. You haven't checked. The fort has its own sounds now. Moans that drift from the huts, the flutter of rats nesting under boards, the creak of logs shifting under snow, the soft sob of someone trying to remember a song. At night, the wind whistles through the gaps in the palisade. Sometimes it sounds like voices. You used to be afraid of them. Now you talk back. The well has frozen over. You break it open daily. You draw what you can. Sometimes the bucket comes up empty. Sometimes it comes up brown. Sometimes it doesn't come up at all. You stop being surprised. You've stopped asking for help. You've stopped offering it. Not out of cruelty, out of realism. Helping someone means moving. Moving means burning energy. Burning energy means hunger. And there is no food, just hunger in different costumes. You sleep in layers now, not for warmth, for protection. From cold, from noise, from knowing what's happening on the other side of your wall. From remembering that your home is built from the same wood you'll be buried under. Sometimes you hear scratching beneath the floor. You tell yourself it's rats. You hope it's rats. You don't want to consider the other options. One of the huts burned down last week. No one knows how. No one asks. The flames leapt fast and bright. People stood and watched, not with fear, with awe. It was the first thing to feel alive in weeks. After the fire, they didn't rebuild. They just moved the ashes aside, and someone else slept there the next night. Because ashes are warmer than mud. You begin to forget what the fort looked like when you arrived. Clean, ordered, new. You close your eyes and try to picture it. All you see is dirt, damp walls, faces without names. You stop trying. The fort no longer protects you. It holds you, cradles you like a cradle made of teeth, keeps you in place. Not for safety, for simplicity. If you all die inside it, at least the bodies will be easy to find. Still listening? Still inside? Then you know, the fort is not your home. It is your liminal space, the waiting room for the grave. And when the last man falls, when the wind eats the last roof, when the river takes back what it lent, this place will not be remembered as a colony. It will be remembered as a mouthful of names no one finished chewing. Sleep under the logs. Let the walls sigh around you. You've earned the silence. Just know, the fort hears everything. The cold bites, the fever burns, and then the fire takes what's left. The body can endure many things, months of hunger, weeks of filth, days of dread, a lifetime of denial. But it does not fare well against the elements, especially when the elements arrive all at once, like wolves in a pack, each eager for a different piece of you. This chapter isn't about just one predator. It's about three, each patient, each cruel, each perfectly timed to finish what the others began. It starts with frostbite, not as a drama, as a distraction. You notice it first in the fingers. They ache when you work, they go numb when you rest, they turn pale. Then blue, then still. You think it's the cold. It is, but it's also something deeper, a creeping stillness, a quiet death that begins at the edge of you and crawls inward. One man lost 3 toes, didn't even feel them go. He took off his boot and they stayed inside. He laughed, then cried, then laughed again. Frostbite doesn't scream, it doesn't plead, it doesn't warn, it just takes. You wrap your limbs in everything you own, you warm your hands over breath and stolen coals. You flex, you rub, you whisper to them like children. Stay with me. Sometimes they listen, sometimes not. You try not to count how many of your fingers still bend. You try not to think about how many you'll need to bury the others. Then comes the fever. Not a visitor, a siege. It arrives as heat, not comfort, not warmth. Fire with intent. Your body sweats even when the air cuts like glass. You shiver through it. You sleep in flashes. You dream of water you can't reach, of fire you can't escape. Someone brings you a rag soaked in river water. They dab your head, your cheeks. It feels like a memory of comfort. You weep, but your eyes are dry. The fever is not quick. It coils in your gut. It waits. Then it turns the knobs behind your eyes. You begin speaking to people who aren't there. Or maybe they are. It's hard to tell anymore. You ask them for food, for light, for forgiveness. You don't remember what for. They don't answer. Around you, others burn in their own skins. You hear them moan at night. Some mutter prayers, some scream. One man tore off all his clothes and ran through the snow, said he was too hot. He didn't come back. You hope he made it. You doubt he did. You feel your own fever-growing teeth. It chews at your balance, your memory, your mercy. But you survive it. This time, it leaves your bones hollow, but you're still here, which means you're still cursed. And then, the fire. Not the kind you begged for. Not the hearth you huddled around. Not the flicker of salvation. No, the fire that comes for everything. It starts in the storehouse. Someone says it was an accident. A dropped coal, a cracked lantern, a prayer too loud. Someone else whispers it wasn't an accident at all. But no one names the arsonist. Because deep down, everyone understands. It begins with smoke, a soft column, barely noticed. By the time someone shouts, it's already too late. The structure blooms in flame, not fast, but hungry, licks the corners. It curls through the roof. It finds every dry sack, every broken crate, every splintered barrel, and then it devours. Panic. Real panic. The first you felt in weeks. Not the slow dread, not the aching hunger, but motion. You run. Everyone runs. Buckets, blankets, hands, screams. You try to fight it. You throw snow, you pour water, you pray. The fire laughs. It eats faster than you can beg. The flames take what's left of the salt meat. 2 barrels of flour, half the herbs used for sickness, every dry scrap of kindling, and 3 people who ran in to save them. They don't come out. The roof collapses. No one speaks. The storehouse was your last tether. It held the illusion of supply, of planning, of tomorrow. Now it's ash, and tomorrow is a myth. You stand before the ruins, your face hot, your hands numb. You breathe in the smoke and taste finality. It tastes like burnt rope and wasted time. That night, no one speaks. No one eats. You huddle with the others in the center of the fort. You share body heat like currency. You listen to the wind whistle through the palisade like a sermon. You listen for hope. You hear crackling wood and empty stomachs. The fire burns long into the night. Even when it's out, it lingers. In your clothes, in your hair, in your lungs. You carry it with you. Every breath a reminder. It took what little you had, and it didn't even say thank you. Still with me? Still warm? Then you've survived all three. The cold that steals limbs, the fever that steals minds, and the fire that steals everything else. But you are not whole. You are what's left. You are the embers. Sleep now if you can. The ground is still warm, for now. When hunger becomes a religion, the only sacrament left is yourself. They call it the starving time now. Capital letters. Like it's a season. Like winter or war. But in truth, it wasn't a time at all. It was a devouring, slow, systematic, holy. Because when hunger eats away everything else, logic, dignity, memory, all that's left is faith, and even that doesn't survive untouched. The numbers had been thinning already, but now they drop, not in tens, in twos, in threes. Every morning, a few more are still, curled up, fingers clutched around empty bowls, eyes open, accusing the sky. You stop asking who they were. You just check for breath, whisper a name if you remember it, and pull a blanket over their head if one's available. Most times there isn't. So you use your coat, until that, too, is taken. The rations are gone. No more salt meat, no more flour, not even the sawdust biscuits. The last of the bark stew has fermented in its own shame. You try to chew leather. It gives you splinters and hope. You swallow it anyway. Now the rats are missing. You used to loathe them. Now you miss the sound of them, scrabbling under the boards, squeaking in the dark. You hunted them, you caught them, you roasted them. Every one, gone. Like friends who left without saying goodbye. Then the dogs, all of them. Some were pets, some were guards, some were dinner. One man confessed, sobbing, as he turned his knife toward the only creature that still licked his hand. They shared one last look, and then they shared a fire. Next, the horses. There weren't many to begin with. Prideful beasts too large for this swamp, too noble for this hell. You boiled their hides, you picked clean their hooves, you scraped the marrow from their bones. One man roasted the mane. It tasted like regret. He ate it anyway. Then came the turn no one spoke of, but everyone saw. The first story was whispered. A man who found a grave disturbed. The cloth pulled back. The body lightened. He didn't say what was missing. He didn't need to. You saw it in his eyes, in the way his lips pressed together, in the way he didn't eat that night, out of guilt. Or perhaps from being full. The second story didn't need telling. There was a smell, something different. Not rot, not waste, something between cooked meat and blasphemy. You followed it. You shouldn't have. A pot half full. Meat tender and gray. A bone too narrow to be animal. You turned away before you confirmed what you already knew. You never looked at the man again. Still, you judged him, until it was your turn. It came quietly. A boy. Young. Thin. Already sick. Gone in the night. No family. No one close. Just gone. You stood over his body for a long time, not praying, just weighing. You told yourself, I'll bury him. You wrapped him in cloth. You carried him away. No one asked where, no one followed. You told yourself just a piece, just to live. Just this once. You told yourself many things, and you were very convincing. The meat cooked fast. You did not season it. You could not look at it. But your hands moved anyway, your mouth opened anyway, and it stayed down. You did not weep. Not then. You wept later, much later, when someone else did the same thing, and you caught yourself wondering if they had done it right. This is what the starving time does. It turns morality inside out. You no longer ask what is right. You ask what will keep you upright one more day. Prayers change too. You stop asking for food. You start asking for forgiveness. Then you stop asking altogether. Instead, you listen to the wind, to the crackle of frost, to the hiss of breath beside you. You listen for weakness. You listen for stillness. You are not proud of it. But you don't apologize either. Some begin praying backward. Not out loud, but in their minds. Instead of deliver us from evil, it becomes deliver us to it. Instead of give us this day our daily bread, it becomes take what you must. A reversal of holiness. A devotion to endurance. The fort becomes quiet, not from peace, from rationing sound, from the knowledge that too much noise burns too many calories. From the understanding that there is nothing left to say. You count the living by their coughs, by the scrape of a pot, by the flicker of a shadow in the corner. One day you don't hear anything, just nothing. And you smile, because it means you've outlasted one more soul. You don't smile long because you know someone else will outlast you. Then something stranger happens. Spring, it creeps in, slow, shy. The snow thins, the ice breaks, birdsong returns. You hear it and flinch. It feels unnatural. It feels like a lie, but it's not. It's life. Come back to ask, who's still here? And you? You are. Thinner, quieter, changed. But here. The sun feels too warm on your skin. You squint at it like an old enemy. You walk among the ashes of what was once food, once friends, once faith, and you wait. You wait for the next ship, for the next order, for the next chance. You wait to be told what this all meant. It won't come. No one will explain, because no explanation could ever be enough. Still hungry? No, not now. Now you're something else. Now you're a vessel of memory, of guilt, of what humanity becomes when the cupboard is empty and the body says, do it or die. And you did. Sleep with your back to the wall tonight, just in case. You never know who's still pretending not to be hungry. The earth thaws, the story spreads, and you become a cautionary tale wrapped in mud. At first, it doesn't feel like spring, just less death. No more snow slipping through the thatch, no more frost collecting on your fingers overnight, no more waking up just to check you're not already dead. You don't celebrate it. No one does. Celebration requires strength and belief. Neither survived the winter. The air warms by degrees. The ground softens. The wind changes flavor, from metallic cold to something green, wet, and disturbingly hopeful. You smell growth. You flinch. Because after everything that's died, the idea of something being born feels obscene. You leave your hut one morning and realize you can hear birds again. You try to remember what they're called. You can't. You just call them not rats. It feels like a compliment. The camp is quieter now. Not the cold, empty silence of before. A different kind. Vacant, hollow, spacious in the wrong places. The paths are wider. The huts are fewer. The fire pit, once crowded, now burns alone. You count the faces. You used to know their names. Now you count them like bones in a mass grave. Of the 100 who arrived, 38 remain. Not strong, not whole, just not dead. That's enough to qualify as success now. The dead didn't get proper burials. Of course they didn't. The ground was too hard for months, the shovels too few, the will too weak. So they were laid in pits, stacked in corners, left in huts and covered in blankets. Now the sun uncovers them. Now the reckoning begins. You walk past a collapsed shelter, and the wind shifts. You retch. Even now, you're surprised there's anything left in you to bring up. A hand sticks out of the mud, bent at the wrist like it's waving. You don't wave back. You don't have the energy to be polite to ghosts. There is no ceremony for what spring reveals. No hymns, no readings, no final words, just tallying, one by one, bone by bone. You find skulls in unexpected places, in baskets, behind barrels, near the well. One floats in a barrel of rainwater. You close the lid. Some things deserve a little privacy, even now. The rats return. Of course they do. They always return. They skitter through the camp like tax collectors, bold and fat. You don't chase them. You're not hungry enough yet. Give it time. You try to clean. Really, you do. You sweep the ash. You gather bones. You write the fallen crosses. It feels ceremonial, almost sacred. And then someone sneezes blood and you remember the sickness hasn't left. It's just bored. Then a sound, a distant sound, something unnatural. You all freeze. It comes again. A deep, rhythmic groan, not thunder, not wind. Sails. You run, or something like it. You scramble to the wall, climb the platform, peer over the palisade. There, on the water, a ship, white canvas, tall masts. Real, moving, alive. You don't cheer, you don't clap, you just stand very, very still. Because you're not sure if you're hallucinating again. But it's real. The ship docks. Men disembark. Clean, bright-eyed, pink-cheeked. They look like a different species. They step into the mud and wrinkle their noses. They cover their mouths. They ask questions. You don't answer. You just gesture around. At the huts, at the ashes, at the hands still reaching from the thawed ground. Let them do the math. They brought supplies, barrels of food, tools, medicine, letters from a world you thought had already moved on. Someone sobs at the sight of bread. Not from joy, from confusion. Because now that you can eat, you're not sure how. The new arrivals take notes. They write in journals. They sketch what's left of the fort. They nod, grim-faced like priests cataloging a martyrdom. You want to scream. We weren't brave, just unlucky. But they wouldn't understand. So you let them write their version. You watch your story become something else. Soon they start asking what happened. You try to explain. You start with the winter, then the hunger, the sickness, the fire, the silence. But they flinch when you get to the meat of it. So you stop. You smile. You say, "We did what we had to." They nod again. But this time they don't meet your eyes. The pit behind the fort is excavated. Casually. Some say to count, some say to honor, some say to investigate. You say nothing. Because the number of skulls won't tell the whole story. It won't tell them about the sounds people made when starving, or the way prayer changes when whispered through cracked lips, or how warm a hand can feel, even when it's not attached anymore. They name you survivor. They write it in bold ink. They speak it like it's a blessing. You don't correct them, but in your head, you use a different word. Leftover. They ask you what it felt like. You shrug. You want to say, like forgetting you were human, like eating your own shadow, like watching your soul leave and realizing it took the light with it. But those aren't words they'd print. So instead you say, cold. And they nod again. Like that explains everything. Eventually the newcomers begin to rebuild, replant, retrench, replan. They speak of recovery, of opportunity, of a new start. You nod politely. You don't join them. Not yet. Because part of you is still under the thaw, still wrapped in fever, still chewing leather in the dark. But you help, eventually, because you must. Because the body moves, even when the soul is quiet. You plant seeds, you hammer boards, you teach them where not to dig. And one day, when the sun is high and you've gone 4 days without remembering what it tasted like to pray backward, you feel something strange, something unwelcome, something dangerous. Hope, it passes quickly. Don't worry, but it was there. Still listening? Still here? Then you're one of the few. You made it. You endured. You remembered enough to be haunted by it. The land still hums with what happened. The trees still whisper. The fort still leans, and the ground still holds the names no one bothered to learn. So sleep now, wanderer. The story is done. The season has passed, and you have survived. Not unchanged, not untouched, but still here. Sleep well, and if you wake to find the world warm again, breathe deep, step gently, and remember, it could always be worse. You could be in that century.